Hello and welcome everyone to this another episode and the last chapter in this book, that is the Vedic age. All right, we have reached after let's almost a month now. It has taken a month for me to finish this book. Uh, for those of you who are thinking about reading this book or start reading this book, the first book is going to be very, I wouldn't exactly say boring, because if you have finally made up your mind that you want to explore the history and culture of this land, then this book is necessary. Okay, it will shatter some myths. One of the examples of those myths that I recall and that was there in the previous video was the example of sati. Okay, practically there is no mention of sati, the practice of sati, in the Rig Vedas, in the Brahmanas, in the Samhitas, even in the Upanishads. Okay, in fact, quite the contrary, there is a mention of inheritance rights of a widow wife. Okay, so if at all sati was the norm during those days, why would they discuss the inheritance rights of a widow? Wasn't she supposed to die with the husband himself? All right, so yes, these are all later age perversion, but if you recall, in our school we were told that since there was a practice called sati and it has been practiced since the beginning of this civilization, hence this civilization or the patriarchal society of this civilization is somehow uh, you know hating on women. Okay, but that all of us know that is far from the truth, that is not the truth. And yeah, but it does have an effect on the psyche of a person, because since even to this day, okay, even to this day, majority of the narratives our history has not changed in the schools. We still teach them about how our civilization was backward, how we treated women badly, which is clearly not the case. Okay, all those false narratives are even based on falser facts, falser, not even facts, falser information, if I may take the liberty of using that word. And that word does not exist, by the way. But yes, you get the point that I'm trying to make. Alright, so we're going to focus today on largely education in the age of the Upanishads. Okay, yesterday we focused on what was it? Social conditions. What was the situation of women? What was the situation of the society? How did the society function? What was the framework of the society? All right. So just a brief recap. Family was supposed to be the framework of the community or the society, and hence for you to have a family you need a woman. And definitely yes, okay, there have been some controversial things that are written about women in our scriptures. I'm not here to deny that. Okay, one of the controversial things that is mentioned in the Upanishads is that women are not fit to be granted independence. Okay, so does that mean that the people during the Upanishads or the people during the Upanishadic age, did they keep their women tied in their house? Okay, were they locked in chains and never allowed to leave the house? That was certainly not the case. Okay, it has to be interpreted in a proper context. Okay, since family life was the framework of the society, and it was the woman who had the biological and natural ability to birth your progeny, hence she was supposed to be protected. She was to be protected diligently. Okay, and hence in those contexts it is mentioned that women are not fit for independence. That does not mean that people kept women locked inside their houses. All right, moving further. So the topic for today is education during the Upanishads. Okay, education, largely everyone knows over here, our civilization functioned on the uh, Guru Shishya Parampara. Okay, it has always been a teacher who teaches the students, or taught the students. Okay, the students were supposed to live with the teacher. It's not like there were independent schools during those age. That was not the norm. The norm was, if you want to learn something from somebody, okay, you have to stay with that person, live with them, help with the daily household chores, help with the begging of the alms as in they'll go to each house to ask for food. Okay, this is how they kept grounded. Even the princes, even the males from the princely states, if they went to a gurukul to study, they were supposed to go from door to door asking for food. This was an exercise to ground you, okay, to cultivate a sense of humility within you. So let's see, high intellectual attainments of the age. Yes, education has always been important, even if you ask your parents, okay, and their parents as well. Knowledge has always been a valuable commodity in our civilization, okay. So yeah, sorry, okay. Educational system maintained high standard and lofty ideals of the preceding age. Okay, just like the Rigvedic age, the age of the Upanishads also maintained a high standard of education, meaning there was a lot that was expected from the education system. So if you're going some place to learn something, it was expected that you would maintain a certain high intellectual order. Highest position in society is willingly yielded to the intellectual aristocracy. Okay, in a society, a person who has a high degree of intelligence, that person is supposed to be the leader or the social role model in the society. This was very different from, not exactly different, but in the Rigvedic or in the and ages succeeding the Rigvedic age, it was largely a person who succeeded at both. Okay, meaning a person who has knowledge of the Vedas and as well as in constant touch with his martial spirit, okay, the Kshatra. So in the earlier ages, that was the definition for somebody, or that was the goal for somebody to attain, for you to achieve some respect in the society. However, as the age progressed, when we reached to the age of the Upanishads, education was given more stress. Remember, the earlier way was the karma marg, meaning the action, and the later, when there was too much accumulation of power amongst the priests, okay, people started to separate from the priest. They started to completely bypass the need of priests by coming up with rituals that they themselves can practice inside their homes. Okay, so what they did was, since the mass of the populace was not very affluent. Okay, now why was this important? Because it was only the affluent people who were comfortable performing such elaborate sacrifices. Okay, so amongst those circles, priests wielded some power. But since mass of the populace was not affluent and they wanted to bypass the need of the Brahmins, what did they do? They came up with their own rituals and own ways to conduct those sacrifices at their own homes. Okay, so they completely bypassed the need of Brahmins, and hence from that point forward, simply because they were in the majority, so to speak, so that tradition carried forward, and that tradition largely survived. I wouldn't say the way of sacrifice was completely dead. There were certain sacrifices for which you needed the priest. Okay. There are many instances on record where the Brahmanas learned the sacred knowledge, particularly philosophy, from the Kshatriyas. The story of Aruni in the Upanishads shows that even old men became pupils. Okay, so there is some story, I am not really aware of this story, but there is a story of Aruni in Upanishads. R.C. Majumdar writes on page number 519 that even the older people, they could learn. Okay, so it has never been a norm in our civilization that after you cross a certain age, okay, you are not expected to learn anything new. No, that's not the case. Okay, in the Upanishads, that is 5,000 years ago, it says that there is no definite age for a pupil. So the learning never stops. So this idea that you should learn everything lifelong, it's not a Western concept. Okay. The most pleasing feature is the frequent reference to women teachers, many of whom possessed highest spiritual knowledge. Okay, from this age forwards as well, from Upanishads and then forwards, you will see there is also mention of women teachers. Okay, so if indeed they were teachers, they might have acquired that knowledge somewhere. So if they have acquired that knowledge somewhere, we cannot simply operate under the assumption that the women, they were completely a slave to the person that to the male member that she married. No, that's not the case. So if there were women teachers, they learned that knowledge somewhere. If they learned that knowledge somewhere, they were allowed to participate in the learning process. If they were allowed to participate in the learning process, then how can we say that imparting of knowledge was largely limited to so and so varnas and so sections of the population? Okay, now I'm not saying that exceptions to this theory does not exist. Obviously there are going to be some exceptions, but there is one very important rule that you must remember, that exceptions do not disapprove the rule. In fact, they prove the rule, that they are exception to a rule. Okay. The Upanishads contain several lists of subjects of study, and these give us a good idea of the wide range of knowledge in those days. Okay, like I said, in our current day school, in the contemporary era, all our subjects are, for the lack of a better word, shitty. Alright, all we teach in our school these days is, a mere collection of facts. Alright, and those collection of facts comes from, the Western countries, the so-called, publication presses, Ivy League schools. Alright, but I don't have anything against them. All I'm saying is, why don't we trust our indigenous sources? Why are we hell-bent on trusting Cambridge and Harvard and all those studies? Is it by coincidence, or is it by design? This is something for you to think about. I'm not going to, mention everything explicitly. There is something that you do need to do on your own. Okay. Alright, so the kind of subjects that were learnt in the schools during the Upanishads were the Vedas, obviously, Itihasa, Purana, and spiritual knowledge, that is the Brahma Vidya, but also grammar, the mathematics, the chronology, the dialectics, ethics, astronomy, military science, science of snakes, and knowledge of portents. Okay, all these things were subjects in schools. These were the subjects that filled your curriculum. Okay, so this tells you a lot about the learning, tells you a lot about the learning system or the education system. Okay, mathematics is right there, so is the science. Okay, so it wasn't completely just philosophy. There definitely was science and there definitely was mathematics. Okay, and I will say almost entirety of the mathematics, okay, has been formulated by our rishis. It's just that we don't recognize it. We call it the Pythagoras theorem because it's so well ingrained into our heads that there was some fellow who went by the name of Pythagoras, that he invented this theorem. Okay, utter bullshit. If you're watching this video, okay, from this point forwards, you call that theorem as right angle theorem or right triangle theorem. No more calling it Pythagoras theorem. This is how the change will start. If you yourself call things such as like Pythagoras theorem and believe and acknowledge that no, there was somebody called Pythagoras who came up with that theorem, how do you expect the world to recognize that that theorem was invented centuries ago by some, I don't exactly recall the name right now, but yes. So that is where the change will begin. I know majority of the textbooks will obviously call it Pythagoras theorem, but it's upon you. Okay, it will require a counterintuitive and a consistent effort from all of us, not just me, okay, all of us to reclaim what is rightfully ours. Okay, it is extremely unfortunate that we have no texts preserved regarding many of these subjects. Okay, there were many other subjects as well. Okay, there were books written. Okay, what did those books have? Simply just a syllabus. Okay, list of subjects that were taught. So these are the lists that have survived, and there are multiple lists. Okay, list of subjects, and never mind about the study material of those subjects. Okay, even the lists have been destroyed, the materials have been destroyed. Okay, how, what, when, Nalanda, Gandharva, what, we can't talk about it because it will get political. Okay, It also demonstrates that the six subjects comprised in the Vedangas, to which a detailed reference has been made, formed only a small portion of the curriculum. In our many of our not many, but one of the previous videos we came up with this idea of Vedangas, meaning the organs of the Vedas. Okay, they were the first things that you read. Okay, for you to fully comprehend and understand the Vedas. Okay, they were the organs of the Vedas. So before you read the Vedas, you need to read the Vedangas. What were Vedangas? There's some sciences that you need to understand for you to completely understand the Vedas. Okay, so even those were simply just a small portion. We don't know even that list is complete or not. In all probability, originally signified the formal reception of an adult youth as a regular member of the Aryan tribe, a custom that prevailed among all people. Okay, the Upnayana, the Janev that we call it. Okay, it's people say that it is only limited to the priestly class. That is not true. Okay, the Upnayan Sanskar is for everyone, as long as you promise to adhere to the ideals, okay, that are required from you, okay, when you take that sacred thread. All right. Moral training formed the very pivot and the backbone of the educational system. What exactly does it mean, moral training? Okay, and that was the pivot, as in the central backbone of the education system. What is moral? What is immoral? How do we decide if something is moral or not? What is the basis of morality? Okay, morality is basically trying to rationalize things based on certain principles. Whether this is right, whether this is wrong, whether it is correct, or whether it is incorrect, whether it is justified or whether it is not justified. Okay. Now, in order for you to rationalize whether something is justified or not, you will need some basic principles, and those basic principles must come out of our organic literature. Okay, we cannot use the principles that have come out in the West, be as attractive as they may be, such as liberty. Okay, the idea of liberty is completely, I would say, I've covered this sufficiently in my previous videos, but just to give you a small recap, for them liberty is like just because you are born with a certain fundamental rights. That's not how it works. Okay, your fundamental rights accrue to you in proportion to the responsibilities and duties that you fulfill for the state. Okay, so that is the idea of liberty according to our civilization. Yes, so like I said, moral training. So morality must be judged. The source of morality must be our texts, not some philosophies that have come out of the revolutions or in the Western countries. Okay, and all these ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, all of them have come out from certain revolutions in the West, French, Russian, and all those revolutions. Why did those revolutions come up? Because their people were unsatisfied with their rulers. Okay, because they themselves needed those things in their societies. Okay, next up is maintenance of chastity was obligatory for the student. So whenever you are a student, you are supposed to be, chaste, meaning, how do I put this delicately? Meaning not using your genitals for rightful purposes, of course. Next is during the Upanishads as well, they stressed a lot upon recitation, meaning orally reciting things, because up until even the Upanishads, the art of writing down things for the posterity to learn and make sense out of it, that had not started. Because why? We believed that memory should be sufficient enough. Okay. So memory was specially valued faculty and was most assiduously cultivated. So memory was something that was cultivated through earnest efforts. The one thing is very interesting. The right prescribed for victory in debates shows that the literary debates were very common and were held in special assembly halls which used to be crowded. Okay, debate is something that we can rightfully claim to be ours. Okay, and the entire practice of debate, okay, starts with the dawn of our civilization. Okay, and this idea that debating with someone, okay, even to this very day you might have experienced this, the joy of outwitting someone in a conversation. Okay, it's unmatchable when you are having an intellectual conversation with someone and you outwit the other person. That's the, like, it's right up there in the topmost joys in a human life. Okay, and it was something that was celebrated during the Upanishads. Why was it celebrated? Because it was considered to be a great honor to be able to debate someone and to be able to outsmart and outwit someone in a debate. Okay, there were rules as well. All right, not the debate types that we see in news channels these days or on YouTube, all those things. That's not how things work. There was intellectual honesty, there was intellectual sincerity. Okay, those are the things. There was empathy. Okay, but those are the things that we are currently missing from our current political discourse and all discourses. There is no frank debate about any given thing in our country. Okay, our country has, it's similarly, it's mirroring the same line as the United States. Okay, stay divided on every single thing. Don't try to manage your differences. Do not try to build bridges whatsoever. I believe this, you believe this, fine. Nobody's trying to seek common grounds. Okay, and that is, I would say, that's a very dangerous situation that we are in. There is also a specific description about how teaching would start in the month of Shravana. It will end in the month of Posh or Magh. Okay. Pronunciation was something that was laid. There was too much stress that was laid on pronunciation. Why? Because once that you make a mistake, okay, that tendency might develop into a habit, and you will carry forward something incorrect to your future generations as well. Remember, it was orally transmitted, so you have to practice these recitations frequently for it to be fresh, for it to be correct. Why do they need to be correct? Because it has to be transferred to the future generations orally. Okay. That's something, this is very interesting. In the Dharma Sutras of Vasishtha and Apastambha, okay, there is an inhibition against learning a language spoken by barbarians. And the study of Sabda Shastra is condemned in the Vasishtha Dharma Sutra. Okay, so I would say that this is the reason why majority of our population is rather very possessive and sensitive about language issues, because it is always believed that language is something that is very sacred. Okay, so learning a foreign language for us has always been something as, like, not very sanctimonious, I would say. And that's very ironic that I'm using the language of English. Okay, but like I said, I mean, it's a, I don't have a nice way to say it, but that's how it has been. Okay, in 47 onwards, majority of the information that was disseminated, or the knowledge what was translated and that was propagated was in the language of English. And now that we are stuck with that language, we have no option. Maybe any one of you is watching this video, you will do something worthwhile to promote any of our indigenous languages. Okay, but at the same time, I'm not saying that we completely abandon our vernaculars. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, there are also some examples. Is written on page number 523. Very often the father himself was the teacher and the student received education at home. Okay, that was also the practice. What if your own father is very well versed in the Vedas? Then you stay home and learn from him. There will be others who will come to him, and that is how that person would start his subsistence. During the Upanishads, pranayam, or the control of the breath, which formed part of the daily sandhya. Okay, daily sandhya as in something that you are supposed to do every day. The pranayam, the breath breathing exercises. Okay, this was done every day. It was an ideal exercise for the lungs, but also one that penetrated to all parts of the body. Okay, so when you do those breathing exercises, the breathing work, it is something that should be done regularly. That is what the Upanishads say. Okay. Lastly, must be noted the fact that the Danda Pradana, handing the staff to the initiated boy, was a regular ceremony, and the staff was certainly an excellent weapon for self-defense. Okay, there was also some sort of a staff that was given, staff as in a stick, okay, that was given to students, and largely the purpose of giving the stick should have been defense. Why else would somebody carry a heavy stick? All right. So that's it for this episode of Ancient History of Bharat. In the next video, we'll talk about the manners, morals, habits, and customs during the age of the Upanishads. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching.